Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we've had ourselves a bit of a situation over at Prydwen, where they've been updating the tier list quite a bit, quite a lot recently, specifically due to the fact that we've had 3 new characters released in like the past 5 days of Wuthering Waves. And one thing about this tier list change in general is that there's been a lot of sweeping updates. I hear there's quite a bit of drama, a little bit of a panic when it comes to how certain positions have shifted. So why don't we go ahead, review the changelog, have a bit of a discussion, and see just where everything has gone. Today marks a pretty major update with Lucilla's release due to the release schedule of, well, those 3 characters that I talked about before being all together. So we wanted to wait to test Lucy and Rebecca further and include Lucilla to have a complete vision of the current state of the 3.4 meta. And now that she's been released, here's how the meta has evolved. So let's take a look at the broad sweeping updates. TOA changes. Lucilla added as a tier 0. Honestly, an unsurprising ranking as Lucilla is Hiyuki's best in slot by a pretty large margin. Yes, and Hiyuki doesn't even need a weapon to do well. I used a Guys, this is what I ended up using on some of the Hiyuki teams.
Let's add more memories.
I put a level 60 out of 70 Jinzo Keeper, and like the team took like slightly longer to clear. Because so much of the damage comes from, like, Glacio Chafe damage, right? That even if you don't have, like, her signature, the team ends up doing pretty well regardless, as long as you have a Hiyuki that's ready to go. So, yeah, that's the situation over there. So, Hiyuki's one of the best DPS characters in the game overall. Her supporting a tier 0 unit like that makes sense why she's there. However, she's not limited to just Hiyuki's team, and her Echo Skill mode enables her to play in one of the strongest archetypes in the meta right now, including Sigrika, Frolova, and Galbrina teams, being a top pick for all of them. However, this is the caveat that I'm going to make. Lucilla is only, like, best in slot for Sigrika. Lucilla is worse than Chuyan for the Frolova teams and the Galbrina teams. And we'll get into why later, and there's a reason why Chuyan will still be closer to the top of the tier list, despite the fact that Lucilla does a similar role to what he does. We'll get into the differences in just a bit. So yeah, overall, Lucilla is one of the most meta characters we've ever had released into the game. Who could have thought? You support one of the best units in the game, you're also one of the best units in the game. Makes sense. Now we got Cantarella, tier 2 to tier 3. God. This change seems harsh until it's understood that Cantarella's only use case is in the Frolova team. And she is otherwise worse than even Dan Jin in Havoc teams. Yes. Cantarella needs Frolova. Frolova does not need Cantarella. However, what's changed is that in the Frolova team, Lucilla plus Chuyan is the new best team that Frolova can use in all game modes. However, you have to play the team sustainless. So I don't think Cantarella needs to be dropped down if we're going to be talking about sustainless teams. Like if we're dropping her down on the basis of a new sustainless team, I feel like that's kind of crazy, bro. That's just my personal take. This renders Cantarella's use case very niche and limited to a team where she's power crept. Because, like, this is sort of like the situation. You can run, like, a sustainless Lupa, Denya, Imith team. And, like, that can technically make Chisa not useful. Do we drop Chisa down because you can play a sustainless Imith Fusion Burst team? I don't think so, because, like, nobody, like, if you had a choice between playing the Imith Sustainless Fusion Burst team or the one with Chisa, you'd probably play the one with Chisa, right? And, like, in a similar way, right, Cantarella, I feel like she's consistent enough as a Frolova performer to not be, like, fucking tier 3 because of a new Sustainless team that you're probably not gonna use. Because who the fuck is going to play? Who the fuck is gonna play this team? I'm serious. I don't think anyone's going to actually play this shit because that would involve you not playing Sigrika and not playing Hiyuki, even though you have Chuyan and Lucilla. Why would you ever play this team instead of, like, running Lucilla with, like, a Hiyuki or something, or, like, a Chuyan with a Sig... I just don't see any universe where somebody does this if they have Cantarella. I have Cantarella so that Frolova constantly has a third teammate. And then I'm using Chuyan with a Sigrika or like anybody else, right? Or I'm using Chuyan in this team, and then Lucilla's like, bro, she could be with Sigrika or she could be with Hiyuki. I think that this is probably the biggest miss of the chart over here, because I think knocking the sustain option down because of a sustainless team that has where the individual characters both have better teams to be in. She wants to be with Hiyuki. She'd rather be with Sigrika. They both don't want to be with Frolova if they have better best in slot teams. And so that's where I think Frolova comes in, or Cantarella comes in as like Anyways, you guys get what's going on over here. That's my main disagreement with that. Now, Lupa's getting knocked down, though. Tier 0 to tier 0.5 with the expert tag +1 added. This is because Lupa's highest damaging teams, Imeth Lupa Mornier and Imeth Lupa Denya, are both outclassed by the main two teams Imeth uses outside of quick swap compositions, where even Galbraith and Changli and Brant start shooting up in value. So I think basically what they're saying is that the Galbraith teams aren't necessarily like tier 0 level anymore, and so to get the teams to tier 0 level with Lupa lineups, you need to start employing a bit of quick swap. Which I think is fair, I guess. Which I think is fair, yeah. Sagrika, partner tag with Chuyan removed because Sagrika can now use either Chuyan or Lucilla in all of her teams. Fair. Cardathea, partner Chakota tag removed. Change because Cardathea can make teams without Chakota, including Chisa plus Arrow Rover. What the fuck? Okay, I don't know about that one. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know about that one. The changes for the characters that start with C seem questionable to me. Yeah, I feel like the Cantarella and the Cardathea changes are the most questionable of all to me. I think everything else makes sense. It's just, I don't think Cantarella needed to be dropped down with Lucilla's release. And I don't know who's playing Cardathea teams without Chakota non-sarcastically. Like, I know this is a mechanic. I know Arrow Rover can convert Havoc Bane to Arrow Erosion, but like, and then you get 9 stat. I don't know. Frolova's damage ceiling was raised to Cardathea's level. Okay. So, are we judging Frolova's baseline on her running a sustainless team with Chu, Yan, and Lucilla? Then the baseline Sagrika team needs to be with Chakona. And, like, it needs to be Chakona, Chu, Yan, Sagrika, and assume you play it perfectly, and then it's stronger than, like, almost everything else in the game. Like, I guess it's just... I don't think charting Frolova sustainless as like her baseline rating, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea to have Frolova sustainless as the baseline measure. It's just, because then we end up knocking everything down on the basis of a sustainless team that's played by like dodging everything. You can't get hit because you're gonna die, like that sort of stuff. You guys get what I'm talking about, right? I think this is a bit rough. Because she got raised with the release of Lucilla, a significant gap between the characters of tier 0.5 can be observed, as the gap between them and Frolova, Yuno, Cardathea is higher than the gap between them and Carlotta, so some DPS have moved. Lucy and Augusta and Galbraith both went down, essentially, so there's more units in tier 1, and then Galbraith got the expert tag with the whole quick swap mechanics in Mono Fusion added in over there. Maybe this change in general isn't actually that bad. Maybe this change in general isn't that bad, but maybe Frolova also should be in tier 1. Just from that perspective, because if she needs to play a sustainless team to catch up in damage, bro, I feel like there's fundamentally like a slight issue over there. She needs to play sustainless to catch up in damage. That's my thing. But maybe other teams don't have sustainless options. All right, so now with that out of the way, let's go ahead. Let's take a look at the actual tier list and see where the placements have shifted. Tier 0 still looking pretty vanilla compared to what we had before. Yeah, we got the Imeth, the Hiyuki, followed by the Sagrika, as well as Luke. Yeah, I don't think anyone is too surprised over here by any of this stuff. Then we got Denya. Yeah, again, nothing new at all over here other than Lucilla being added in as tier 0 and then Lupa moving out. I mean, the tier 0 category doesn't look wrong at all necessarily to me. It looks pretty consistent overall. Yeah, I guess Chisa's definitely tier 0 now that she's got 2 actual lineups to use, and then, you know, the tier 0.5 Cardathea. Partner tag being removed so you can run a Chisa Arrow Rover team. I think this is my take. I think the Chisa Arrow Rover team is like not even slightly close to tier 0.5. It's unreal. And so I think she's only in tier 0.5 if you're playing her with a Cardathea. And so I think for her to be here, you kind of need, like, I think it kind of works, but it's like a tier like fucking 2 or 3 team, right? When you play without Chakota, like it's just bad, right? So I guess to me, it's like, I wouldn't want somebody to try out a like Chisa Arrow Rover team, think it's tier 0.5, and then you get fucking mogged. Right? Like I feel like that's just something that can occur. The other DPSs in tier 0.5 are Yuno, because I guess you can run Lene Mornier, and then Frolova if you're going sustainless with Chuyan and Lucilla. So she would use 2 tier 0 sub DPSs to do tier 0.5 damage. And then that's like creating a gap like this. Because I think this is the reality over here. I think most people can unilaterally agree Carlotta does less damage and gets worse clear times than all 3 of these characters. But like, they're all now in the same tier. She has, like, all 3 of these characters are, I feel like, a good bit better than Carlotta. So, I don't know. I think whatever they did with tier 0.5 and tier 1, this doesn't look right because now I can't really rationalize why all 4 of these units are together. Does that make sense? I think these 3 belong together, but I don't think they belong here. They definitely don't belong with Carlotta because Carlotta is just consistent, but her damage is definitely not at the levels of these guys. Yeah, okay. There's no real changes elsewhere. Yeah, there's really no real changes elsewhere other than Cantarella getting sent to, like, the fucking farm to get turned into glue. Like, this is like some Animal Farm shit over here with Cantarella. Nah, I think Cantarella still belongs in tier 2. I think a majority of what I'm seeing over here is being fueled heavily by Frolova sustainless teams. And are the Frolova sustainless teams that popular and actually that worth using and like utilizing and spending the energy of Lucilla and Chuyan, who, guys, the reality is everyone typically just goes for Frolova, Cantarella, and then one of the Echo skill supports because they're valuable characters that you kind of want to like not stack up in one team. I don't know anyone that's actually playing the sustainless double Echo support team in any realistic situation, because you wouldn't do it in End State Matrix. Like this would be the worst fucking utilization of resources in End State Matrix that God's Earth has like ever seen. And I guess that being the recommendation and that being what they're judged, nobody would ever do it because I would legitimately call you a fucking idiot if you in End State Matrix dedicated both these units to Frolova and then didn't split them up to support 2 teams. Because they're both tier 0 supports that lead their own teams with how good their buffs are. So, like, it's just an inefficient use of vigor. It's like grief. It's pretty much just like griefing. I don't know anyone who would do this in any of the 3 game modes. You wouldn't do it in Whimpering Wastes, because you would want Frolova on one side and then Sagrika on the other. You would not do that shit in TOA, because that shit is sustainless. So, in Weewa, the mode where sustainless doesn't matter, it's probably the only one you would do it, but then you'd rather split them up anyways. I don't know. To me, it looks like a lot of these changes are being based off of like a game state or a decision that no player would actually feasibly make. And that to me is like, it's getting outside the realms of like reasonableness for like, I guess like the average person, which is what this tier list is made for, right? The average player. And the average player would not do or have any of the assumptions that I feel like are going on with the Frolova thing. But the rest of the changes, I get. But this whole movement over here and the Cantarella stuff, yeah, I don't really know about that one. And the whole, like, Cardathea thing? Yeah, I can get the Lupa being bumped down, but it seems like a lot of unnecessary stuff happened over here. Because, like, does the tier list get better because we removed the Chakotay tag? I don't think so. Does it get better for us charting for Frolova on sustainless teams that nobody would really actually play? I don't think so. So that's my personal take. I think the TOA, I think it's a bit of a miss on this one. Bit of a miss. But I feel like I've explained all the reasons for why. Now, let's go over to Whimpering Wastes. Lucilla, added as tier 0. Makes sense because she supports one of the best Weewa characters in Hiyuki and Glacial Chain form, and one of the other best Weewa characters in Sagrika and Frolova in her Echo form. Who's really that surprised over here? Yeah, no, she worked with 2 out of like 2 of the main archetypes that are really good in Weewa. Cantarella getting bumped down. Guys, because this is just the realistic take of Whimpering Waves. In what universe is, because guys, I'm just saying this from like a literal, like actual player's position. In what universe are you going to sub out Cantarella to put both Echo skill buffers in one team? I'm sorry, it's just, why would somebody do that? Like you're going to say, I'm not going to play Hiyuki or Sagrika. Fuck these 2 units. I'm not gonna run Hiyuki with Lucilla. Fuck that. I'm not running Sagrika with Chuyan. fuck that. Like, I just don't know who the fuck would do this. Like, you have to be a fucking psychopath to be doing this when you have, like, teams like this available. Or you have, like, this one. Or you have this one. What kind of fucking psychopath would do this? Like, maybe if you're, like, doing this, and then, like, you run, like, I guess, like, this is, it's definitely doable. Like, you can do this for fun. I guess it's just, I don't see how most players are gonna come to, like, yeah, let's play this. Because, again, you're dedicating two of the best sub DPSs in the game mode that literally support. Like, bro, this is a great team. It'll clear Weewa. Bro, like, this is a great team. It'll clear Weewa. And that's what Cantarella's insane value is. She is basically like somebody that allows you to get good performance on your Farlova teams, but then only utilize one of the very, very sort of like important characters, right? And these buffers over here, in my opinion, are like so valuable that you kind of gotta like, these are the teams that I'd probably think about running. Swap Chuyan and Lucilla or something like that. But I guess it's just like, just because there's a sustainless team, right, that performs better, I don't know if that, like, do we bump down Shorekeeper because this team is better for Sagrika and Weewa? Do we bump down Shorekeeper to tier 1 because of this? This is better than running SK, Chuyan, and Sagrika, right? Putting in Chacona is better, it's sustainless. Does this mean we bump down Shorekeeper because this team's better? I don't think so. That's personally not what I would do. Do we bump down Chisa because of, like, this? Maybe not if Chisa's, like, actually better. But you can kind of, like, see the situation that I'm talking about, right? I just don't think that, like... Yeah, I feel like this is kind of like a sort of, like, unsustainable sort of, like, situation. Because the act of playing Farlova and Chuyan and Lucilla is one of the biggest, like, resource griefs you can do. You can do it for fun, but it's a for fun team that wastes resources, and no player should really do it for progression. I don't know if it's the right thing to base movements on the tier list off of. That's my personal take. Cantarell is usable in this game mode if you want to use Sagrika Hypercarry as your second team, and the Cantarell team is still strong enough to have the performance around tier 0.5 level. I mean, it's just, bro, I don't know who pulled Lucilla just to use her as a third teammate with Chuyan and Farlova. That's the main take. Hiyuki, expert tag +1 added. With Lucilla's release, similar to the Imoth, Hiyuki can go up to tier 0 level with proper wave control, ultimate stack management, and a bit of quick swapping. I don't know what quick swapping you're doing in the Lucilla team. Yeah, like, maybe somebody can tell me what quick swapping you're doing. It actually just feels like this is the negative status team that was designed as a 1-2-3. Between Chisa and Hiyuki. Oh, okay. So you're quick swapping to get Hiyuki's initial forte. Awesome. Yeah, oh, great. Amazing. Linnae, tier 0.5 to tier 1. With Denya and Lucilla's releases, Linnae's use case for Hiyuki and Imoth has fallen out of fashion in terms of top team performance. I think that's fair. Yeah, no, Linnae was like the liberation buffer, and both those characters have a better support or a better sub DPS for Whimpering Wastes, so that's fair. She's still able to work, she's still good, and she'll still get good scores, but she's not as solid as any of the other teams, and she's not a best in slot for any tier 0 units. Lupa, tier 0.5 to tier 1 with expert tag. Yeah, I think that's fair, especially with the HP inflation. And now Lucy. After properly testing Lucy at S0, getting clearing performances out of her without temporary endgame buffs requires proper wave management and rotation management that overall players won't have, similar to Zani. Maybe you should give her an expert tag then or something like that. And then Sagrika gets the partner tag removed. I mean, the Weewa changes to me, they all look pretty solid. I think the only one that I mainly disagree with is Cantarella moving down. I am somebody that is basically, I'm personally of the boat. I'm going to be using Cantarella every single reset. I'll swap out who I decide to run my Farlova with. It could be Chuyan, it could be Lucilla. It depends on whether or not I plan on using Hiyuki on the other side or Sagrika on the other side, right? And they kind of just like go from there. And I feel like in terms of the longevity and like legitimately I guess like my recommendation would be if somebody had Lucilla, Chuyan, and Farlova, I would tell them to pull Cantarella so that they could just like move one of those very good sub DPSs to another team. That would like legitimately be my advice as a like as in terms of like meta. If you had Lucilla, Chuyan, Farlova, and no Cantarella, pulling a Cantarella would be one of the biggest adds to your account that you could like get. Personally, because well now you can build so many more teams off of that. So to me, Cantarell is a great sort of like asset to accounts because of like that alone. And in the present day, I wouldn't even recommend people skip her to like double stack these up. I wouldn't do that. I would say they should probably still get her so that they can have like a tight Frolova team that they can just sub out the sub DPS of on a whim. It's solid for the TOA and it's also solid for Weewa as well. I think Sweat just hates her so much. He was like looking for an opportunity to bump her down. But I think that it was a little bit ambitious if we're using a sustainless team that utilizes some of the most valuable sub DPSs in the game. Tier 0 in both game modes. Guys, we're utilizing the only 2 sub DPSs in Tier 0. The only ones that are Tier 0 in both game modes, both on one team. That's griefing. That's, bro. The only 2 Tier 0 units in the game to go support a Tier 0 point, that's just griefing. Nobody's gonna do that. That's my main take. Hopefully you understand it. Now, let's see this page over here, because I think that they've been spot on when it comes to Lucilla. Let's check this out. All right, best pick for Glacio Chafe. Absolutely. One of the best picks for echo damage. Well, she's the second option, and she's the worst option compared to Chuyan in 2 out of 3 of the teams. But it's not bad being a slightly worse option than Chuyan. That's actually really good because he's also Tier 0. Has no energy requirements and the most brain-dead rotation in the fucking game. You literally, disabled people can figure out how to play her in probably like 10 minutes. And can also focus more on personal damage or buffing depending on her role on the team. She has a bunch of different echo sets she can use. Actually, one of the most free-form characters we've had in the game. I actually like how many different options she has in terms of gearing, but that also makes her kind of expensive investment-wise. But do note, that's a possibility. Her rotation restricts, cons. Her rotation restricts her quick swap potential by design. Very little quick swap ability. I don't think she even quick swaps at all during her rotation. It's like maybe she can spotlight at the very start. Maybe you can start off on her, hold E. That's pretty much it, right? Like is that the only swap she does? Like you swap onto her, hold E, and then swap back to somebody else. That's it. That's all she has, right? Like one move? Sweet. Comment all rectifier characters. No good permanent alternatives to her signature. Cosmic Ripples is never ideal, but in Glacio Chafe form, she doesn't really need a weapon at all. So this is really more so a con in Echo mode because there are so little alternatives. You really want something with crit in Echo mode. You can't really get it though. And now she has the same problem with Denya. 2 different sets for 2 resonance modes. She's fucking expensive if you want her to do everything she does. However, the reality is, and I've been saying this a lot about Lucilla, I would view her as a Hiyuki support first, a Hiyuki sub DPS first, and then think about all of her other use cases as a nice little cherry on top, and not really think too much about the Echo skill side, because she's a side grade in the Echo skill teams, right? That can be better in one of them and then worse than Chuyan in the others. But she is an undisputed best in slot 4 Hiyuki no matter what. There's really no decisions to make. If you have Hiyuki, you should probably get Lucilla as well. That's just the professional advice that everyone's going to be getting as like a player, because Hiyuki's really, really, really good with her. And of course, it's really, really good in both game modes and it feels very consistent. So yeah, that's my personal take on this one. But the update as a whole, a little bit ambitious. I see the vision though. However, I think we do have to make like a bit of a decision over here. Are the sustainless, really resource-intensive teams that most people aren't really going to play, is that something, right, that we should be using as like the baseline or like the measure of a tier list, right? Where we're looking for what information that's going to be accessible and realistic for the average player. Because in a similar vein, a like sustainless Frolova team that's utilizing both of these units, to me, it kind of seems like almost like a quick swap sort of situation, where few players that actually play the game are going to do it, and it almost needs like its own sort of like noting, right, if you will. Because if someone needs quick swap to be good, you want to make note of that. And if someone needs sustainless to have this rating, maybe you make note of that as well. I could totally see like a new like maybe sustain tag getting added to a sustain tag, or no sustain tag getting added as well, if the only way for their team to be up here, or for them to be rated up here, is to play without any healing. Because that maybe is like enough of like a drawback for some individuals for it to make sense. And you maybe want to make that upfront and more apparent. Because not having healing, at the very least, right? It seems like it could be a bit of a big debuff for a lot of people. Now, though, let's round this all out by reviewing one of the last sort of additions that Prydwen's made, and we'll make special time for the value tier list at a later point, the team tier list. This is essentially going to be kind of like a more broken down, in-depth view of why all those various teams are where they are. And so there's just going to be like a general changelog over here that's moving a bunch of the stuff. Let's just take a look at these lineups over here. And this is what Prydwen is considering the highest damage teams in the game. So tier 0 starting off first. Imeth Fusion Burst is at the very top. This is my personal take. I think Imeth Fusion Burst without Quick Swap is a tier 0.5 team. I think you need the expert tag +1 to make baseline Fusion Burst tier 0 in the TOA. It's not good in the TOA unless you're quick swapping, and if you're quick swapping, I think you need the expert tag. This is really shit in 1, 2, 3. However, it's being rated as tier 0 with 1, 2, 3 without the expert tag. So to me, Imeth Rupture, 1,000,000% tier 0, 1, 2, 3, no expert tag needed at all. No issues with this rating over here. But this one, everyone knows if you pulled Denya and you played this team in the TOA, this is kind of fucking bad, unless you're going to be quick swapping. Now, though, we got Hiyuki Hypercarry, and this will be my take over here. This is also a tier 0 team with no expert tag required. It's very easy to play once you figure out how Hiyuki works. And it's also a 1, 2, 3 team. So yes, this is fair. Luke, same situation. No quick swap required. Very good with Denya. And of course, you can use a bunch of... So again, do you kind of like see... You see the vision over here. Sigrika, Luke, Hiyuki, and Imeth Rupture, they all are tier 0 teams that do a fuck ton of damage without the need for quick swap. Fusion Burst is just simply not there. It's just not there unless you do. So I think it's expert tag +1. And if you don't believe me, try it out yourself. Play the Fusion Burst team without quick swapping and compare it to the Rupture team and see your damage. Now in tier 0.5, we're going to have Imeth Mono Fusion. I don't think this is the one where you do like some... And this is where you have expert tag +1. It turns into a tier 0 team. I think Fusion Burst needs to be down here as well. At least in the TOA. Put it in tier 0 in Weewa where it belongs. Yes, it's a tier 0 Weewa team. Then you're going to have Cart Hypercarry with an expert tag +1. I think this is fair, but in a similar vein, where's Cardathea without Chakona? If you're not going to be putting Cardathea without Chakona, why are we removing the partner tag? Because the only Cardathea team I see here is with Chakona. So, like, I guess we need to have a cart team without Chakona rated on here if we're going to remove the partner tag, right? Because I don't see one without it. So that's just a minor thing to point out over there. Hypercarry. Okay, I don't think we put Chakona in the 3rd slot though in Hypercarry. I don't think we do that. Do we? I don't know. I've never played that team. Maybe it is viable. And then for Lova Echo. All right. Part of me is like thinking this looks like kind of a disaster. Like, you might need to break these out. This is kind of excessive, right? Like 4 different sub DPSs and 3 different, and they're all rated the same. I don't know if we can do that. I think you might need a sustainless one where you rate it, and then like the ones with sustain, and then you rate them down, you rate them separately. You know what I mean? I feel like, yeah, this is kind of crazy. Yeah, I do feel like that is a little bit too much. I feel like that's a little bit too much. That's my personal take. Now we got Augusta. Yeah, I think the for Lova Echo one needs to be split into 2 categories. One that's like below and like in tier 1, and one that's in tier 0.5. That's my personal take. I get the vision over here, but this is just too many options. Like, no other character has this many fucking options to slot in. Augusta Hypercarry in tier 1. This is kind of the realization. Does an Augusta with a and a Shorekeeper deal the same amount of damage as Carlotta with Jeja and Shorekeeper? Because that's what we're seeing over here, is that an Augusta Hypercarry with is like dealing the same damage as like a Carlotta. I don't think so. And I think that's where like stuff is getting a little bit confusing to me, because this team is consistent. It's good. It clears, but it deals much less damage than this team, and it deals much less damage than this team, and it also deals much less damage than this team as well. So I guess to me, it's sort of just like maybe Carlotta needs to be bumped down, or maybe these characters need to be bumped up or something. But yeah, the tier 1 has been something that I'm like a little bit iffy about. I've already explained it before, right? Now we have the strong teams, tier 1.5. All right, this is where we're going to have to get... This does more damage than the Carlotta team. Wait, this is like another situation. Wait, this team deals more damage than the Carlotta team. Doesn't this team also deal more damage than the... But does it outdamage the Lene Mornier Carlotta? I don't know. The team's tier list turns really... I stopped kind of paying attention after tier 3 because the teams just get like more and more like foreign as time goes on. Like, who is this bitch, right? Like, it's been a while since we've seen her, right? You can kind of like see what's going on. They just get less and less viable as time goes on. There's no real reason to really like look at them further. I guess the main thing is tier 1.5 and tier 1 seem a little bit interesting to me right now. Because maybe this is just basing it off of like Carlotta with like Lene and Mornier, and maybe this is why she's tier 1. And if that's the case, does a Carlotta with Lene and Mornier, is it better or worse than Augusta with Yuno and Shorekeeper? Who knows? But I guess the thing is that a lot of the movements have occurred over here primarily because of like it seems like everything is sort of getting pushed down because of like this one new Frolova Echo double Echo team. Is it worth moving this much stuff down and I guess introducing this whole struggle that we're seeing in tier 1 over here because of one offshoot sustainless? It seems like a lot for one team that got added to the game. And then again, I'm thinking it's one team that nobody's actually going to feasibly play. So it's like, to me, again, I see the vision. But this is very ambitious. And maybe there's somebody out there that can like paint a different perspective or like a point of view of like, yeah, actually a lot of people are going to play this sustainless team. But to me, it's like, man, what is a player actually going to do? Feasibly, reasonably going to do? And then basing the tier list off of, and the placements and the movements, even if there's stuff available, off of what people are actually going to do. And I think in this situation, there's a lot of assumptions being made of things that people probably won't do, and I feel like that is causing additional implications with the tier list that maybe don't need to be there. So yeah, that's my personal take on this one. I think it's a good attempt, but definitely missed the mark a good bit in a couple of places. And also, I still don't understand why we removed the, like, okay, bro, who the fuck is playing a Chisa Era Rover kart team? This is what I mean by, what is the average person gonna do? Is the average person gonna play a Chisa Era Rover kart team? Non-sarcastic. No, they're not. Like, they're not gonna do it. That's gonna be my take over here. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.